Dragon Ball is a massive franchise, and with so many sagas to take in, we decided to rank them all from worst to best. To do this, we're consolidating and condensing some lesser sagas into the parent sagas where they're necessary. But otherwise, we're covering every major arc from the Pilaf Saga all the way to the Broly Saga. With that in mind, let's get started with CBR's official rankings of every saga in Dragon Ball. Starting at the bottom, we have the God of Destruction Beerus Saga, the story that was adapted from Battle of Gods. In fact, this is part of why we ranked it at the bottom, because it was a total rehash of the film that arguably did the story worse and with far less animation quality. The other reason we ranked it last is because despite introducing great characters like Whis and Beerus, the story's pretty lacking, even in its original film form. What makes us say this? Well, think back to the Piccolo Jr. saga. When Kami asked Goku to take his place, Goku made it pretty clear that he wasn't interested in godhood. So it goes against his character that he'd become a Super Saiyan God. Next up, we have the Universe 6 Saga, a story arc that we actually had a little more trouble ranking. While this saga introduced a lot of cool elements to the series, like the multiverse and alternate versions of characters, it also fell pretty flat in a lot of ways. For one thing, it was a tournament saga, which, while they can sometimes be interesting, are mostly just a way for the series to spin its wheels. Again, we did get some cool additions to the series, like Hit and his time skip power. The saga managed to pick up towards the end, especially with Goku and Hit's fight, but overall the Universe 6 saga was pretty weak and not worthy of being anywhere close to the top 10. Next up, we have the Epilogue of Dragon Ball Z, which despite only being a few episodes, is still a significant part of the story. Known as the Peaceful World Saga, these episodes start with an anime-only party celebrating the defeat of Buu. Then cut to 10 years later when Goku and friends are meeting to compete in the World Martial Arts Tournament. Sure, it's an adorable saga, especially since we got to see Goku be such a good grandpappy to Pan, but overall it's not as strong of an ending as most would have wanted. In fact, because Dragon Ball Super exists, this ending has much less meaning and impact, which is why it falls into the bottom 5 of our rankings. This next one is a bit of a technicality since it's a manga-only saga that has yet to be adapted into an anime. But with the announcement of a new Dragon Ball Super movie on the way, that could change. Regardless, the Galactic Patrol Prisoner Saga is still ongoing, so we can't properly judge it as it is now. For those who don't know, the Galactic Patrol Prisoner Saga follows Goku and Vegeta as they deal with one of the oldest and greatest threats to the universe. Moro, a planet-devouring warrior who was sealed away long ago by the Kais for his crimes. Before the Buu Saga truly got started, there were two introductory sagas that we think deserve their own place in our ranking. The sagas in question are the Great Saiyan Saga and the World Tournament Saga, both of which have a lot of merit in terms of great slice-of-life moments and strong stage-setting elements. In terms of slice of life, it was nice seeing Gohan grow up and get to go to high school in the Great Saiyan Saga. And the superhero identity for which the saga was named was a fun way to ease us into a time skip and set the stage for things like Videl and eventually the World Martial Arts Tournament's return to the franchise. Lots of fans are mixed on the Buu Saga, and honestly, we get it. While it has some of the most iconic and interesting set pieces of the entire Dragon Ball franchise, the story, antagonist, pacing, and overall execution leave a lot to be desired. Because of these contrasting elements, we decided that the Buu Saga still deserves to be in the top 15 sagas of the franchise, but firmly at the tail end of it. Again, our reasoning behind this is that while it has some cool moments, like both kinds of fusion, Super Saiyan 3, Majin Vegeta, Vegeta Sacrifice, and the final Spirit Bomb, it still lacks the strong writing and story planning that the franchise once had in spades. This, plus the fact that Majin Buu is arguably the least interesting and least compelling villain in Dragon Ball Z, is why we ranked the Buu Saga at number 15. After Battle of Gods came out, a second Dragon Ball film was announced, Resurrection F. And while these films are both good enough on their own, when they were rehashed in lower quality for Dragon Ball Super, they were far less appealing. That said, the Golden Frieza Saga is the lesser of two evils for a number of reasons. First of all, there was a lot more added to the saga when it was adapted from the film, like Goku and Vegeta's training under Whis, and the story itself wasn't as weak as Battle of Gods was. Frieza's resurrection had weight and meaning to it, which is why we've placed the Golden Frieza Saga at number 14 in our ranks. After its first introduction, the World Martial Arts Tournament became a significant part of the Dragon Ball franchise, making a big return in the final saga of Dragon Ball Z. But what about the first saga to feature it? Where does that rank? Well, we think number 13's the perfect place for it, since it introduced a lot of great aspects of the series, but a lot of these elements were greatly improved upon in later sagas. It introduced training sagas and tournament sagas to not just Dragon Ball, but all shonen series, and it gave us Krillin's first appearance, but the tournament itself is a bit too gag-heavy and doesn't actually get good until the final few episodes. Following directly after the World Martial Arts Tournament Saga, both in ranking and in chronological order, we have the Red Ribbon Army Saga. This saga followed Goku as he sought out his grandpa's 4-star Dragon Ball, and along the way he runs into and defeats the evil Red Ribbon Army. This saga has a lot of great action, and is in many ways the saga that one could attribute with being the transitional period of Dragon Ball being a comedy action series to just an action series. Additionally, the Red Ribbon Army deserves a lot of credit for laying the groundwork for the King Piccolo Saga, since it had a major antagonist serving as its main source of conflict. Once again, we have a saga following in both chronological and ranking order, as the Ten Shinhan Saga, which took place after the Red Ribbon Army Saga, is arguably better than it. Remember when we said that the cool elements in the World Martial Arts Tournament Saga were improved in later sagas? This is one of those sagas. How do we figure? Well, just take a look at Goku's fight against Krillin. It's dynamic, action-packed, and every attack is beautifully animated. Tien is also a great antagonist, who, despite not being evil at heart, proves to be a great opponent for Goku as he was ruthless and had plenty of powerful challenging techniques. All of this made for one of the coolest fights in the series, and a saga that deserves the number 11 spot in our rankings. A lot of fans of the series agree that the Future Trunks Saga is where Dragon Ball Super really gets good. And we're inclined to agree, since Goku Black and Zamasu are great villains. The idea to have an evil version of Goku was a great one, a powerful concept that plays around with our love of Goku and twists it in a dark way. Add a great sympathetic villain in the form of Zamasu to this, and you have one of the most interesting sagas in the franchise. In fact, that's why the Future Trunks Saga brings in the top 10 of our rankings, since it proved that the new Dragon Ball material didn't just have to be rehashes of old elements. It could still feel interesting and fresh despite being such a long-running franchise. The Future Trunks Saga might have fallen a bit flat in the end, but it still earns the number 10 spot. The Android Saga was another tough one to rank. On the one hand, it introduced some great characters like Future Trunks and Androids 16, 17, and 18. But on the other hand, it's a little bit scattered and really only works to lead into the Cell Saga. In fact, because the Cell Saga was the result of Akira Toriyama's editor not caring for the androids' designs, the Android Saga wasn't ever really completed. Once Cell got introduced, the androids were suddenly secondary antagonists, literal fodder for Cell to use to get stronger. Because of this, we couldn't really give the Android Saga a full, fair judgment, and in the larger scale of things, there are a few sagas that outrank it. Again, a lot of cool characters came out of this saga, but the overall pacing and story left a few things to be desired, firmly placing the Android Saga at number 9 in our list. The King Piccolo Saga of Dragon Ball was big and impactful in a lot of ways. It gave us our first major antagonist, it destroyed the Dragon Balls, and it gave the franchise a solid focus on villains and martial arts, dropping most, if not all, of the comedy in the series. Suffice it to say, things were different after the introduction of King Piccolo, which on its own earned this saga a place in our top 10. What earned it the 8th spot specifically was the fact that it was so darn good. Think about how it started. Krillin was found dead, and the great King Piccolo, the scourge of the earth hundreds of years ago, had returned, leaving Goku as the only warrior capable of fighting him after his friends failed. The saga was epic and exciting and had some great fights, all culminating in the climax, which had Goku punch a frickin' hole through a green man. Everything that was great about the King Piccolo Saga was made 10 times greater in the following arc, the Piccolo Jr. Saga, especially in the action department. In fact, despite being part of Dragon Ball, the Piccolo Jr. Saga is basically as action-packed and fight-focused as Dragon Ball Z, to the point where it might as well be a part of the sequel series. There are so many awesome things that happened in the Piccolo Jr. Saga, which is short, sweet, and to the point. For one thing, Goku grew into the warrior we know him as in Dragon Ball Z. And second, the final fight in this saga is awesome in every sense of the word. From the great pacing and staging to the epic attacks used as the battle got more and more intense. Seriously, every bit of Goku's fight with Piccolo Jr. is impactful, exciting, and full of everything that makes Dragon Ball great. Though it has its faults, it's pretty much the consensus that the Universal Survival Saga is the best saga of Dragon Ball Super. And we'd have to agree. It's not perfect by any means, but it's definitely exciting enough to be close to the top 5, sitting pretty at the 6th spot in our rankings. The reason we gave it such a high rank was because it managed to do a lot of cool stuff with a simple premise. In fact, that simple premise itself was a great start, since it took the Tournament Saga concept and cranked it up to 11 by making it a battle royale. A first for the franchise. Add to this a lot of great character moments, some cool and unique warriors with cool and unique powers, the interesting concept of Ultra Instinct, and of course that insanely awesome final fight, and we've got one of the best sagas in the franchise. Bringing up the tail end of the top 5, we have the saga that started it all, the Emperor Pilaf Saga. While some might argue that the Pilaf Saga isn't as exciting as the Universal Survival Saga or the Piccolo Jr. Saga, we had to put the very first saga in the series in the top 5. Seriously, there would be no Dragon Ball without the goofy comedy action adventure that was Goku and Bulma searching for the Dragon Balls. Sure, being a fan of Dragon Ball Z first might have made watching the original series a bit jarring, since it's so different, but for what it is, the Pilaf Saga is fun, adventurous, and sets up a lot of the groundwork for the things people love most about Dragon Ball. Because of all these factors, and because it's actually about the Dragon Balls, we think the Emperor Pilaf Saga deserves the number 5 spot in our rankings. Does it count as a saga if it just consists of one film? Whatever. We're gonna include Dragon Ball Super Broly in here regardless, since it was so dang awesome. To be fair, we might be a little overzealous with our ranking of the Broly Saga since it has its fair share of writing issues here and there, but honestly, the quality of the animation and the stellar fight choreography is worth a ton of points in our book, since, you know, Dragon Ball's all about those rad fights. This isn't to say the story and themes don't matter in Dragon Ball, just that Broly knocked it out of the park with the visuals and battles, throwing in some strong story elements into the mix as well. Sure, the story didn't 100% stick the landing, but all things considered, we think the Broly Saga deserves the 4th spot in our rankings. Finally, we've come to the top 3 sagas in all of Dragon Ball, starting with the Cell Saga. The Cell Saga is a powerful combination of great storytelling, awesome fights, and stellar character development, specifically in relation to Gohan, who went through a lot of change throughout that arc. In fact, the Cell Saga is the main reason that Gohan fans grew to love the character. His personal growth and final battle against Cell standing out as some of the best parts of the series. Speaking of the saga's villain, Cell is a very interesting antagonist, wanting to prove his perfection against those he deems imperfect compared to him. Top this off with Goku's emotional sacrifice and death, the debut of Super Saiyan 2, which Gohan was the first to reach, as well as Cell's awesome designs in each of his 3 forms, and you've got a saga worth the 3rd spot in our rankings. As great as the Cell Saga was, there's nothing quite like the excitement of the Saiyan Saga. Seriously, think about how Raditz, Nappa, Vegeta, and the final fight all hooked you in as a kid. There's no denying it was a great way to start a series and a strong saga overall. Additionally, consider how that saga was originally presented in Japan. One week, Goku's just a powerful martial artist with a tail, and the next, he's an alien from a nearly extinct species of evil warriors, and his brother's forcing him to be as evil as he is. It's a pretty jarring change to say the least. And this powerful shift shook things up in a great way that only furthers the saga's awesomeness. Plus, the Saiyan Saga introduced Vegeta and gave us his and Goku's first epic as hell fight. Anyway you look at it, the Saiyan Saga is one of the best sagas in all of Dragon Ball. Lastly, and quite literally not least, we have the Frieza Saga, an arc that could very easily be deemed as perfect. Why do we say this? Think about how it built upon what was established in the Saiyan Saga and brought it all to a close in a satisfying way. That, were it to be the last saga of Dragon Ball, would have worked extremely well. From the concept of a Super Saiyan being fully realized to Vegeta's pride being broken and even Piccolo's return to his planet of origin, there are a lot of powerful story moments throughout the Frieza Saga. However, nothing compares to the final act of the saga, when Goku finally arrives to face Frieza and things get intense. Specifically, Goku's first Super Saiyan transformation is the perfect culmination of all that had been established in the series previously, making for the absolute best saga in the entire Dragon Ball franchise. So, there you have it, our official rankings of all the Dragon Ball sagas from worst to best. Do you agree with our rankings? What's your favorite saga? Let us know what you think down in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to CBR for more Dragon Ball videos. Thanks for watching.